The Clear Signal with Steve Visscher is produced in the first instance as a radio show, and it's aired on stations around Australia. Due to music licensing restrictions, copyright-protected music tracks in this podcast edition have either been replaced with royalty-free alternatives or removed entirely.
The Clear Signal with Steve Visscher.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to the show. Great to have you with us as always for another hour here on the Clear Signal. We're going to have a lot of fun today, so looking forward to having you with us. Clearsignal.com.au is, of course, the website. You can find out all about the show and, of course, ways to get in touch if you'd like to. And remember, if you'd like to catch up on a show that you might have missed, or maybe you just want to catch one again, if you've got a favourite, you can go to the website and click on the Editions tab, and you'll find them all in there. You can play them away to your heart's content. Now, this week, we're going to be looking at a couple of my favourite topics. Now, computers being one, and I'll say that putting my practising nerd hat on because, hey, that's what I am. And, of course, the other one is eating. And, well, as always, I hope my doctor's not listening. Clyde Netto is a cybersecurity specialist, and he's waiting on the line to chat with us in just a few minutes about some ways that we can make our computers a bit safer when we're browsing online, and really, I guess, just making our computers a bit more safe in general. It's something that I think is perhaps not always well understood. And in the second half hour today, well, I'm really looking forward to catching up with the host of a very popular YouTube channel, which is called Katina Eats Kilos. And now, if you've never watched this channel, well, you can imagine, as the name suggests, the show's creator, Katina DeJarnett, makes her living doing food challenges, and she goes all around the world doing this with her partner. It's a really fun channel. You will not believe how much food Katina can put away when she's doing them too. She's, what can I say, a fairly compact size. She's not very tall, and she's also amazingly fit and really healthy. And that's certainly, I guess, if you were a professional eater, I think that's not exactly what you'd picture at first glance if you talked about someone to do that. That's all ahead a little later, of course. But first, as I mentioned, it's time to talk all things computers with Clyde Netto. Clyde's the Chief Technology Officer at Grace Technologies, and he joins us on the line now. G'day, Clyde. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
A Chief Technology Officer. Tell us about the role of a Chief Technology Officer these days, because I guess in this modern world, that would be far more widely encompassing than perhaps it used to be.
Yes, it is now because, with these Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer, and Chief Information Security Officer roles, nowadays, especially if you think of information security and cybersecurity, it pretty much spans across all three roles. But, as Chief Technology Officer, in addition to setting the strategy for the technology for an organization, you also have the responsibility for cybersecurity across the organization. So, yeah, it's pretty much all encompassing, right, from development to, ongoing maintenance and development and product life cycle and so on, but also end-to-end cybersecurity governance and compliance.
So it's interesting too, isn't it? Because I suppose cybersecurity is a concept I don't know that it's widely understood by the average user. And I mean, if we could probably split those between domestic users and corporations, I suppose thinking of the audience listening to this show, we might perhaps focus on individuals. Do you think people really understand cybersecurity properly these days? There seems to be a lot of people get caught up in a lot of viruses and scams and all sorts of things. Yeah,
look, very honestly speaking, I think there is a small percentage of your everyday users who actually truly understand what cybersecurity is. Now, of course, we don't expect everyday users to understand, the breadths and the depths of cybersecurity as it would be in a corporate organization or even to a professional like myself.
I suppose the idea, if we marry the two between corporate and domestic users together, that's probably a more pressing issue now, because in this modern times, a lot of people are working from home and logging in via technology. So the concept of keeping your computer at home as secure as possible is more vital than ever.
Absolutely. See, the thing people need to understand is if your organization, and I think almost every organization does this, it gives you your corporate laptop to work from home, then you shouldn't really be doing anything on your personal laptop. Nowadays, of course, in the era of Office 365 and Google Workspaces and all that, you could technically log into a browser from any computer. But, the advice from someone sitting on the corporate side of it would be use only your corporate device, because your corporate device, and people get very antsy when you use the word monitored. You're not being monitored. Your device is being monitored, so that if there's anything there that could be buggy, spyware, trying to screen grab confidential stuff while you're working on it, your IT organization can detect that and quickly shut it down. Whereas if you jump onto a browser and use Google Workspaces or Office 365 or whatever it is from your personal computer, and there's a little bit of malware that's recording your screen and grabbing personal information from it, you wouldn't even know, and neither would your corporate organization. So it's about really trying to draw a line between the two and keeping that separate. But yeah, if you are using your personal computer for work because you are not provided with one, then I guess the organization also takes on a bit of risk there. But you as an employee or even as a user of your own computer need to take the responsibility to keep it up to date, keep it secure, have antiviruses on there, so on and so forth. The responsibility is on both sides.
You talk about malware and spyware there. How easy is it these days for someone who wants to put that sort of stuff on your computer remotely? Is it as easy as we're led to believe?
It is incredibly easy. It is incredibly easy. So many mediums, we were thinking of back in the day, I'm going back about 20 plus years now, where, one of the leading ways to get viruses or malware onto your computer was using a floppy disk or USB drive. In this connected world, that's just gone up to the power of n, literally to the power of n. And, it's so easy to get these info stealers and all onto your computers. It comes through email, it comes through, shopping apps where it says spin this wheel and you get $100 off and so many things. Really, the sky is the limit for how you can get malware and info stealers onto someone's computer.
They're the people that make these sorts of routines and systems, they're very clever, aren't they? Socially, psychologically, they know how to get people to just distract them long enough to click on something like that.
Absolutely. They are one thing we need to understand. Take the average user out of the picture, your everyday user out of the picture. If you look at the people who are doing this, yes, some of them are, just lucky and riding the wave of any little bits and pieces they can pull together here and there. But a majority of the scammers are far more sophisticated than an average user. They're even getting far more sophisticated and intelligent than cybersecurity professionals. It's hard for cybersecurity professionals itself to stay one step ahead of the race. And if you look at corporate organizations as well, we go through all these due diligence processes and so on and so forth, and we have well-written policies and policies to regulate the use of AI and all that. Scammers and hackers don't have those policies. They are there out to cause harm. So they will leverage, the best tools out there while we are sitting and trying to do due diligence on will this tool work for us. So they're always ahead of us.
Okay, so for your average user with their computer, what's the best strategy? I know that most people, I suppose, use Microsoft Windows these days, and we'll start with that. Microsoft Windows comes with its own antivirus and its own firewall, but there are a lot of third-party apps out there that many people, my business partner, for example, is an IT guy and is always extolling the virtues of using third-party software. Are there some options that are better than others, or is the Microsoft one okay to use?
See, if you can afford it, if you're on a really tight budget, yes, use the Microsoft product. Anything is better than nothing. But if you can afford a third-party antivirus software, by all means, go for it. Because, again, with the use of third-party products, the updates are more regular. As long as you keep your license active, as long as you have a computer that connects to the internet, which, to be honest, every computer connects to the internet, and it keeps downloading those virus definitions and keeps updating itself, there is always that extra degree of protection with using a third-party software than using something that's just built into Windows. But again, if you can't afford it, and I get that, just use the Windows one. Anything's better than nothing.
And I suppose too, I've always been a believer in being a bit of a practicing nerd myself, Clyde. I have always been a believer in the idea that your behaviour online is also very vital in keeping your computer safe and just playing it safe.
100%. You are going to be as safe as you choose to stay online. Behavior is such an important thing. especially, like I said, I go back to the point of there are so many websites out there. I'm not going to name any websites because, that's not what we're here to do, but there are so many websites operating across the globe from, regions that we know are a lot more prone to, conduct these attacks on people, steal information from people and use that again there. So when you are using websites like that to buy cheap stuff or, buy cheap clothes and things like that, be careful of your behavior, because your behavior on those websites is being tracked. Every single thing that you click on is being tracked. So, and all these things, they push out large volumes of data and trends that these organizations, these people are using AI now to analyze and target most stuff at you. So you nailed it. Like, user behavior is one of the key things, that I'd watch out for.
And I suppose, a lot of people like to use a lot of free services like Gmail or like Yahoo Mail, right. But nothing is free, is it? I mean, those things, the trade-off for that is privacy, isn't it? I mean, everything you write, everything you type is being scanned and analysed within those systems.
Absolutely. Look, nothing is free. That's very true. And, of course, you have settings in a lot of these tools now that you can turn off, things being read by AI and so on and so forth. But again, how is it free? It's free because of all the ads. You click the ads, your behavior is tracked. They have data. They know what they know what ad you've clicked today, and they're going to start hitting you with those ads tomorrow. And just imagine if you're someone who's vulnerable, a shopaholic, who is already in financial stress. You're getting hit now suddenly with all these, buy me now, there's this such a large percentage of discount, or take out a loan today, buy now, pay later. All these are targeted ads. So it is very, very dangerous out there. Nothing is free.
The clear signal.
You're listening to The Clear Signal. My very special guest this week from Grace Technology Australia is their Chief Technology Officer, Clyde Netto, and we're talking about computers and cybersecurity. Clyde, I wanted to touch on, we talked in the first half there about, your behaviour and keeping your computer safe. I suppose the front of house first key to all of that, of course, is your password. We need to be, in fact, we're being forced these days when we reset our passwords to make them more complex. What's your take on passwords, and how complex do we need to make them?
I would always say a minimum of 8 characters is a good starting point. Make sure that it's, a mix of numbers, special characters, and alphabets as well. Now, the new thing that everybody's recommending, and we're recommending this across the industry, is the use of passphrases. A passphrase is easier to remember than a password, and it adds that complexity naturally. For example, I love coffee is better than coffee 123 or coffee followed by your date of birth in MMDDYY. So a passphrase like I love coffee, and change it up, like instead of the I, use an exclamation, where there's a O, use a 0, where there is an E, use a 3, things like that. That would, you still remember the passphrase, but you're also changing it up and throwing in those special characters and numbers. If you are a little better at managing your passwords and you want to go the extra mile, use a password generator. You have password generators for free out there. Just don't go onto a site that asks you to put in any usernames, because you don't want them capturing your usernames and your passwords. You just want a password generator site that just has one field that says generate random password. You click a button, you copy that password out of there, and that becomes your new password. Password generators are great, and you can play with the levels of complexity and so on. So highly recommend the use of a password generator.
And what about a password aggregator? There used to be a site around, and this is the only one that comes to mind. There used to be one called LastPass. I don't know if it's around. An idea where you have a one master password and it'll take care of the rest. And obviously I know that Google will offer to save your passwords as well. Is that safe?
again, it's as safe as you can keep it. Yeah, if you've got a personal computer and you're saving your passwords on something like Google Password Manager, there are ways to get to it. Like, I have people who come to me and say, can you help us out? I've forgotten my password. I used to store it on Google, but I don't know how to retrieve it from Google because I'm transferring to a new laptop or whatever. And, as long as I have control to that computer, I can actually go and see the clear text of that password that's stored. Now, I do it professionally. I am bound by the ethics, that I comply with year on year, and I have to agree to comply with this year on year. But scammers and hackers don't need to comply with any ethics. So, definitely dangerous. And I say again, it's only as secure as you can keep it secure. Things like LastPass are great because it actually does not store the password on your local machine. The passwords are stored in the cloud. It has the ability to store your passwords for each individual website or service that you use, and it's secured by a master password. In addition to it, LastPass also has a password generator built into it. LastPass now also has an authenticator app that is built into it, which generates multi-factor authentication codes. So if you're using Facebook and you choose to use MFA, you can multi-factor authentication. You can get those one-time codes out of LastPass. So they've really expanded the service offering there. Using a service like LastPass, especially if you can afford to do the premium one, which costs, I think, about $30 or $40 a year, I definitely think that there's a benefit to that.
Yeah, and I should add there too, of course, Clyde, that we're not getting a kickback from that. It's just the first one that came to mind, but there are
Absolutely.
others around. We talk about living in a connected world, of course, and social media is a big thing. People, they just seem to put so much personal information online that could be exploited, it seems to me. Do you think that most users should perhaps just be a little more careful, a little more circumspect?
Absolutely. The simple, answer to that is stop. Stop putting personal information on there. There is so much of machine learning happening in the background. Do not put your personal information on social media. Your kids with school uniforms on, school pictures, that's not required on social media. If you're doing it, be smart about it. Blur out the logo on their, school uniforms. Don't keep the personal information there to a minimum. If you do want to share things like pictures and so on with family and friends, there are ways to do that with closed groups, on social media platforms like Facebook, like Instagram, and so on. You can share that with smaller groups. Everything doesn't have to be publicly visible to everybody. You can go into your security settings and flick it around to be just your friends or friends of friends rather than everybody who can, access your information online. Be very, very cautious because it's very easy for people to piece things together if they go through your profile and you haven't been smart about how you've handled it.
Another thing I avoid in my house is a home hub, something like Alexa. Those things are always listening, aren't they? I don't know why anybody would want one in their home.
Yes, look, those things are always listening, and it comes down to what you want to do with it again and how safe you want to keep it. Now, I say that almost everywhere because there are safeguards built into all these things. You can turn off the mic, you can turn off the camera. So I use home hubs, to be very honest, but I turn the microphones. The cameras are always off. If I'm using the Amazon Echo Hub, which I have one in the living room, the camera is always turned off. Microphones, the mute switch is on whenever we don't need to talk to it, whenever we need to talk to it. Just tap the mic switch, talk to it. Once we've done giving it our instruction, we turn the mute switch on again. There are ways you can use this technology, safely, or at least a lot safer than the average user where everything's on and listening to every conversation in every room. But I think it's definitely good. Automation is good. It's definitely very, very helpful. But use it safely.
I think too, anyone who's ever used a smartphone would know those things are always listening too, aren't they? It's interesting how you can have a conversation about something and then you look at your ads that are being served a minute later and it's just coincidentally about something you were just talking about.
Absolutely. And now you've got the ability now to go down to a granular level and control what apps have access to things like your location, your microphone, your camera. Utilize that. the latest, operating systems, Android, whether you're using iOS or iPadOS or whatever it is, you can go into the privacy settings and you can actually turn off. So I bet you no one ever says, okay, today I'm going to go to settings on my iPhone. I'm going to go to privacy, and I'm going to look at every app that has access to my camera or every app that has access to my microphone. Why does, an app that I'm not even talking to, or an app that's not recording video, need access to video and my microphone? Turn it off. Location. Why do other apps that require no location information, why do they always constantly track your location? It doesn't need to. Turn it off to, allow when required. There are so many settings you can play with. Go and play with them. Make yourself as safe as you can.
It's great advice. It's great advice. In fact, it's funny you mention that, because I might have mentioned it. I'm a bit of a nerd, Clyde, and I actually go into all my apps and do exactly that. But I don't think most people do. And, honestly, people don't know to do that sort of stuff. So that's part of the reason we're having conversations such as this one. Finally, I guess a lot is made of Windows versus Mac versus Linux. That can either, it can become a very polarized discussion at times. I know that, but do you think one is better than the other? Over my left shoulder here, I have a Linux box, for example, and I love playing around with Linux. And Mac users, of course, will always tell you that they've got a better system and it's safer. So, what's the reality of that?
First of all, I must say, if I had $1 for every time I've been asked this question, I would have retired by now. But I think they're very subjective, to be honest, Steve, because see, with things like Linux, it's not for your average home user. So Linux is definitely, when I say Linux is safer, because it's open source, if you're tech savvy, if you're a computer nerd, if you're part of an organization, you obviously can, fix vulnerabilities, plug vulnerabilities a lot faster than, let's say, Windows rolling out something. But let's put the advanced user out of the picture, because we want to talk about end users. We want to talk about young kids. We want to talk about older people who their children are now, grandparents and so on, who've been given a laptop now and said, here, mom and dad, you can talk to your grandchildren now. And, they're not as tech savvy. So let's talk about Windows and Mac. Right now, the price point between the two, there's not much difference, to be honest. And if you really think of how much you stand to lose by trying to save $200, $300, $400, you could end up being scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars. And I guess what I'm leading to is I definitely find Macs to be more secure. The way Apple goes about keeping their security program up to date, they're keeping their devices up to date. There's a lot of controls in place. Now, I'm not saying Windows doesn't have controls in place. They do. Most of the devices, the largest number of devices in the world today are running Windows. But I just think, with Windows, there's a lot more onus on the user to keep the operating system up to date. And if you're not staying on top of your Windows updates, then you're opening yourself up to vulnerabilities. So leaning more towards Mac from a safety perspective for the end user.
Well, I think there'll be a lot of, Mac fanatics right now listening to this that'll be jumping for joy hearing you say that, Clyde.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I use all platforms. Yeah, that's part of my bread and butter. And if I were to recommend to anyone, I would recommend, use of a Mac, especially if you're buying and giving one to your, to an older person saying, here you go, talk to the children. Yes, do they need a Mac? Really? Probably not. But it's going to keep them safe. Just show them how to use it and, away you go.
Clyde, it's been so good talking to you this morning about technology, and I could talk for days about this sort of stuff, and we might have to have you on the show again at another time. Clyde, where can we find you online?
gracetechnology.com.au. Very simple.
Fantastic. Clyde Netto, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Steve. Have a good day. Cheers.
Coming up after the break, we're going to switch to talking about the joys and the fun and games of doing food challenges with very popular YouTuber Katina DeJarnett from Katina Eats Kilos. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Clear Signal.
Keeping up to date with the latest news is a huge part of our daily lives. Now you can have news on demand with the Australian Independent Radio News app. News and sport in your pocket whenever you want it. Wherever you are in the world, if you call Australia home, you can stay in touch with the Air News app. Download it now for news on the go.
This is Air News.
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 Australian independent radio news.
You're listening to The Clear Signal with Steve Visscher.
If you're of a certain age, and, well, let's face it, I guess I certainly am, you can probably remember back to the days when television entertainment was just that. It was only on the TV. But these days, of course, we have a far wider range of options for sourcing our nightly entertainment, and many of us, I think, inevitably find ourselves tuning into the likes of YouTube channels. And I've got to say, I think that medium now forms the bulk of my TV viewing when I have time to do it. And of course, YouTube's rather fancy and very clever algorithms just seem to know exactly what so many of my interests are. Like, for example, eating. And so it's probably no surprise at all that a year or two ago, my viewing suggestions began filling up with channels dedicated to, of course, food challenges. And there's some really fun channels around to watch, and I find it strangely compelling, and actually it's a little bit awe-inspiring as well, seeing the sizes of some of these dishes that are served up. It's really amazing. I don't know that I could actually do it, and I'm a big guy. Well, one such person who's created a hugely popular channel is a lady who, I suppose if you were to see her on screen at first glance, you'd probably think she's pretty unlikely to be able to put away any of these challenges, but I can tell you, she does it almost every week with apparent ease, and that's Katina DeJarnett. Her channel's called Katina Eats Kilos, and she joins us on the line now from her home in Tennessee. Katina, welcome. It's so good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I got to tell you, my wife and I, we watch your show every Monday night. It's become compulsory viewing. Yourself, another guy, I don't know if you know him. I think his name's Randy Santel. I'm not sure if you've met that guy. And also an English gentleman by the name of Adam Moran, Beard Meets Foods. He was the guy that first popped into my feed on YouTube randomly. I don't even know how it popped into my feed, but the idea of watching people do food challenges, and from watching Beard's show, then Randy popped up, and then your channel popped up, and now it's just, like I say, regular viewing. So congratulations on your success.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, the YouTube rabbit hole will do that to you.
It probably follows because, as you can tell by looking at me on the screen, I'm not exactly slight of frame, and I do like to eat, but I certainly couldn't put away the sorts of food quantities that you guys put away. Oh, I got to ask you, I'm sure you've had lots of different careers and probably maybe studied at college and everything else like that, as is the go in America. But did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that you'd be going around the world doing food challenges for a living?
I definitely did not. I think when I was younger, I thought the idea sounded cool. I grew up watching Man vs. Food on American television with Adam Richman and watching that and thinking oh, that looks so fun. That looks like that'd be a really cool thing to do. And even as a kid being I feel like I could do that. And then that kind of took a back seat until after I did a bodybuilding show in 2019. And I was just constantly hungry all the time. And I started watching YouTube videos about eating. So I was watching the same folks as you. I was watching Randy. I was watching Beard Meets Food. And I was I really think I could do that. And then that's kind of just where it all started. And it kind of just came out of nowhere. I would have never in a million years thought that I would have actually done it as a living.
The bodybuilding is an interesting aspect because one thing I notice about, there's plenty of you around. We have James Webb over here. He goes by Jay Webby, I think is his handle. You guys, I mean, if I were doing it, I would be the size of 3 office blocks if I did what you did for a living. But you guys are all so fit. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's a lot of off time, basically. So I structure in an on season and an off season. So basically the bulk of my filming happens between spring and then the end of summer. And then I usually take all of fall and early winter mostly off to diet. And then the time during even the touring when we're eating all the food, there's a lot of exercise involved, watching what we eat between the challenges mostly. Sometimes we have some fun, especially in different countries, but mostly watching what we're eating and getting some workouts in.
I think it was the great Homer Simpson that once quipped that nobody can make friends with salad. But I would imagine, as you say, in between eating these huge challenges and in the off seasons, you do a lot of salad. Do you do a lot of healthy food like that? You must.
I do actually. So I had we just got back from Finland at the end of August. So that was prior to last night, actually. The last challenge I had done was like mid to end of August, and then I just did one last night. So leading up to the challenge last night that we did, which was 70 wings and about a pound of fries, or a half a kilo of fries roughly, leading up to that, I've been dieting, maybe eating 1,700 calories a day, exercising a lot. But the week leading up to that, you were talking about salads. I've been eating like jumbo salads basically in order to help stretch my stomach. So I'll do like a big, like 4-pound salad, or I guess like a 2-kilo salad,
Yep.
along with like a big bowl of protein oatmeal, and then drink probably 2 liters total of liquid just to get a bit of a stretch to prepare myself for the challenges coming up. So that was mostly dieting led to that, and then low calorie, high volume eating. So that's kind of another strategy for keeping the weight low instead of just going to a buffet, even though that sounds a little bit more fun.
Yeah. I want to come back to the concept of water, actually, because that's something my wife and I talk about all the time. We watch you guys doing these things. Sticking on fitness, though, I mean, what does your doctor think of all of this? Does he say, Katina, you shouldn't be doing this. It's not healthy.
It's 2024. I don't have a primary care physician anymore, but I have gotten my blood work done, and my blood work looks fantastic. I've never had a negative physical. I think my last physical was maybe like a year or 2 ago, and everything was fine. So yeah, for the most part, relatively healthy. I'm sure post, I wouldn't measure it exactly right after coming back from like some sort of big tour or something, but I would imagine that maybe my like healthy cholesterol would probably be low, and my LDL would maybe be a little bit elevated. But whenever I've had some time off, it usually comes back squeaky clean. So that's what I really worry about. And then just maintaining that overall like low body fat and relatively low, especially visceral fat, like around my stomach and organs, really kind of just leads to that overall feeling of health and well-being. And then of course, maintaining cardiovascular health by doing some spin biking, lots of walking, and maybe the occasional jog or run, as well as all the strength training.
Because I really think it could be like a side channel for you, yourself and people who are as fit as you and do these challenges. You could probably do a good healthy eating channel on the side. You'd probably do really well at that.
I think that would kind of be a fun thing. That might be something that we kind of segue into in the future. Randy is a registered dietitian, and so kind of our future plans are going to be around building that kind of as a brand, and then building him up as hopefully eventually the number one followed registered dietitian on the internet. That would be amazing. So helping kind of along that route. So maybe it could be in the plans in the future to kind of make my channel go more towards fitness and stuff. I try to tie in maybe things here and there, but I also can't really ruin that algorithm too much. I have to pretty much stick to food challenges, but every now and then I'll throw in a little taste of fitness.
Now, of course, we mentioned Randy Santel, your partner, and he's also a rather prolific competitive eater himself. Did you guys meet on the circuit? Is it a circuit?
Yeah, so it's a pretty small community, but yeah, he reached out to me back in 2020. He had been invited out to Alaska to do a big team pizza challenge in Nenana, Alaska, and he needed a partner, and he had kind of just watched my big steak challenge I had done in Texas kind of had gone viral, and my channel was taking off, and he knew that I was doing this full time, basically traveling and doing food challenges. I didn't have like a real job. YouTube was my job. So he kind of reached out because it was last minute. I think he was like, can you leave in 10 days or something and come to Alaska and do some challenges? And I was like, of course. Yeah, let's do it. Like, this is a great opportunity. I mean, he was at the time, I didn't really know him as anything other than like the king of like the YouTube food challenges and the creator of foodchallenges.com, which is what I use to get started doing food challenges myself and train and get ready and everything. So it was like a really big honor to go. And so I went, and then we like hit it off right away. Of course, being like, I was nervous, of course, because it was like so cool to be working with someone like that. But yeah, we hit it off right away. We spent loads of time in the car. Alaska is massive. If you don't know, it is absolutely huge. I believe it's like the land mass is like half the size of like the United States, like mainland proper.
Yeah.
It's huge. So we were in the car for like hours at a time between challenges. And I think we were together like 7 or 8 days, and I think like day 5 or something, 4 or 5, we like hit it off, and it was like we just like knew that like this was it.
Yeah, you mentioned Texas there just before. Now I've spent a considerable amount of time in that part of the world. I think every just normal meal when you go to a restaurant in Texas is a food challenge in itself, but there must be some pretty good ones there.
Yeah, so I haven't done too many in Texas, actually. I'd only done the steak challenge just passing through. I had been stationed temporarily in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I was making the drive back home all the way to Spokane, Washington, and Texas just happened to be a stop midway, and I was doing this really long drive, and I happened to be going through Amarillo, and I was like, I'm going to do this steak challenge, and then ended up using that as like my one meal on the road, and then drove like 30 hours straight after to get home, so it was mostly a fueling stop and for fun.
Well, of course, you travel the United States doing these challenges, but you guys travel the world doing this. As you mentioned, you just come back from Scandinavia and you've been to many other parts of the world as well. How do you prepare for a trip? Do you research the challenges ahead of time, or do you just sort of land in country and they come to you, or do people approach you from their restaurants?
It's a little bit of a mix of both. We do our best to use like the foodchallenges.com database to kind of look for challenges that maybe already exist. But a lot of the times too, we kind of just reach out on social media and say like, hey, if you live in X country, can you let us know if there's like a food challenge near you? So we'll use that word of mouth. We'll have restaurants reach out if we do that sometimes. So it's kind of like a mixture of like restaurants reaching out saying, hey, we have one, or hey, we'd like to start one, or having it already in the foodchallenges.com database just from people reporting them in the past.
I didn't even know there was such a database, Katina. I think I probably should stay away from looking at that one. Just
There's tons in Australia. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, you can pull up a map. It's right on foodchallenges.com. You can pull up the map list. And so like for Australia example, you can put in like your region, you can put in Melbourne or you can put in Sydney, and basically a bunch of little pins will show up on this map, and it'll show you where the food challenge is, what the food challenge consists of, the prizes, the cost at the time it was posted on foodchallenges.com, and then the level of difficulty on like a scale of, I believe it's a scale of 1 to 4 or something like that, or 1 to 5.
So, Katina, when you're passing through immigration, what do you write on your immigration form when it says, what are you here for? I mean, what is my profession?
Honestly, it's just like visiting and tourism, because mostly we're just visiting and being tourists, and we just happen to stop at these restaurants and eat for the most part. So, I mean, we're just like explorers in the country, you know what I mean? So we're just trying to try all this food and showcase it as much as we can online, and do our best to help the restaurants. And then, of course, meet people when we're traveling as well, because it's really cool when we're traveling. It's really, I guess, kind of like humbling and shocking sometimes, because I never really think about it, like how many people globally can watch mine and Randy's videos. So it's incredible, even different languages. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it's a good opportunity for any restaurant to, as you say, to showcase what they do. I mean, I assume you're always well received. Have you ever had any restaurant say, yeah, maybe not?
Not so much. We've had places that are kind of like unexcited or don't really know who we are, and they're just like, oh, there's these people coming in to eat a bunch of food, and they don't really get it. But I wouldn't ever say there's been any like standoffish restaurants or anything for the most part that we've encountered. I'd say mostly it's excitement, and they're excited to have like the opportunity, or if anything, it's just like a level of indifference where they're like, cool, these people are coming in, maybe they'll bring some extra people in for us.
And have you ever had, now I've seen this happen on Beard Meats Foods, where he's gone to an establishment and they know it's him, so they've bulked out the challenge even more. Has that ever happened to you guys?
Yeah, that happens quite a bit, but I wouldn't say it's from like a place of like being nefarious or anything. Oftentimes it's just because they're trying so hard to make the food look good or look really presentable or look, spectacular on camera, that oftentimes it gets a bit inflated. It's like the YouTube special is kind of what I would lovingly call it. So yeah, sometimes it can get a little bit out of hand, but I don't think it comes from like a place of trying to like make sure we lose or make sure food wins. There's every now and then where the restaurant's like, yeah, we want food to win, because they don't really understand like the benefit of having us beat it means that more people might come in and try it, or especially if like a small woman comes in and can do it. Like think of all the big guys that are like, if she can do it, I can do it. Like there's a lot of that goes on. So there's a benefit to us winning. So it's always like, hey, let's just keep it like you would for everyone, so they can see how the challenge really is.
Well, it's an important thing that you say there about you don't always beat the challenge. And I think that comes down to the art and to the really sort of friendly way in which you produce your videos. Like you don't always win the challenge, and that's okay. I like the way that if it beats you, you're very gracious about it and you still have a good time. That's obvious.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of the goal, like the overarching goal of like the channel. I mean, obviously it's like a girl versus food kind of theme, but really the goal is to have fun And the goal is to showcase food and hopefully help out a restaurant and hopefully entertain people and make somebody laugh. So I am really competitive. So if I lose, it crushes me, but I'm not going to put that in the video and be like, oh, the restaurant, they were so terrible. Like I can't do that. And usually if something bad happens, it really is an accident or they just don't know, or I wouldn't ever say for the most part that it's ever from like a bad place.
The Clear Signal.
What is up, Kilo Crew, and welcome to today's video. Today, I'm at Front Street Pub and Eatery in Davenport, Iowa, where I'm about to tuck into this massive 5-pound pork nacho challenge. Now, I'm going to have only 45 minutes to finish about 5 pounds of nachos, which you see in front of me, absolutely loaded with pork. We have roasted corn. We have like a bunch of cheese. Today, Randy and I are on our way to a place called Crawdaddy's on Greenfield in West Allis, Wisconsin, where we are each going to be taking on a 5-foot po' boy challenge. Today, I'm at the Original Pancake House in the Lincoln Park area of Chicago, Illinois, where I'm about to take on Chicago's biggest breakfast challenge. Now, as you can see in front of me, I have like the biggest breakfast I have ever seen. Today, I'm at the Weather Vane in Menasha, Wisconsin, where I am fixing to take on their massive tsunami omelet challenge. Now, in front of me, I have only 6-egg omelet, but it is loaded with over 14 different ingredients. Today, I'm at Jim Bob's Pizza in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. I am here to take on the brand new Pizza Punisher Challenge by Jim Bob's Pizza. In front of me, I have a 20-inch pizza topped with, I went with the 5 cheese and tomato variation that is also half topped in Euro meat, so I thought that sounded delightful, and I'm really excited to tuck into that. Today, I'm at Ketchup Premium Burger Bar here at the Miracle Mile shop at Planet Hollywood Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am about to take on their Colossal Burger Challenge. Now, in front of me, I have a towering burger that consists of 4 half-pound patties covered in cheese, bacon, veggies, and hopefully a lot of ketchup, because this is the Ketchup Burger Bar. Today, I am in the Bankstown neighborhood right outside of Sydney, New South Wales, where I'm about to take on a massive Arab box challenge by the kind folks at the Two Smokin' Arabs food truck. In front of me, I have their Mega Arab Box Challenge. I'm going to have just 1 hour to finish $150 worth of delicious smoked American-style barbecue. Today, I'm super excited to be at Dirty Ranch Steakhouse in Herning of Denmark, where I'm about to take on their massive schnitzel challenge. In front of me, I have a 1 kilo, and that is just of meat, schnitzel, covered in breading. And then on the side, I have a whole bunch of their peas, some of their new potatoes, and a big bowl of peppercorn sauce. On top of the schnitzel is what's called a Wiener Boy. All right, Kilo Crew, so we are finally in Auckland. I've been looking forward to getting here. This time, I am at Broadway Diner, which is an iconic food truck here located on, you guessed it, Broadway. And I'm about to take on their amazing, brand new Broadway Diner Challenge. This thing is insane. It's a full menu challenge here. I have one of their legendary Aucklander burgers. This has a big old Scotch fillet in it, which I guess is like a 300-gram piece of ribeye. Today, I'm at the Bunkinut Pig in Franklin, Tennessee, where I'm about to take on their Pig Challenge. Now, I only have 30 minutes to take on 5 of their signature burgers piled high in this tower here. I'm like holding it up, and this thing is hefty. Today is my final food challenge here in Singapore, and in true fashion, the final challenge always has to be the toughest one. I am here at Shrimp Prawn Seafood in the Boat Quay area of Singapore, where I'm about to take on their Zermatt Platter Challenge. Today, I am super pumped, but also really nervous. This is an insane amount of food, and it is also my final food challenge here in Australia. But today, I am at Smoky Moo in the Newstead neighborhood of Brisbane, where I'm about to take on their brand new Mighty Moo Challenge. Now, I have 1 hour to finish an insane amount of meats, but they all do look very tasty. I have 500 grams of their brisket, which looks delightful. I love me some brisket. 500 grams of pastrami, 500 grams of their out-of-the-bone beef short rib, which is really cool that they deboned that for me because I'm a hot mess eating off the bone, and then also 500 grams of their beef cheeks, which I'm excited to try.
My mom's the only other woman I've ever known who could make a sandwich like that.
Are you gonna eat that?
No.
You're listening to The Clear Signal. My very special guest this week is Katina DeJarnett from the very popular food challenge channel, Katina Eats Kilos. Now, Katina, you get around the world, of course, filming these videos with your partner, Randy Santel. It's obviously a joint effort when you're filming. You both do videos at the same time, but somebody has to go first. It looks like it's always you who goes first.
I feel like, yeah, I've been going first a lot in the past couple years. I found that number one, I'm a really hangry person. Randy manages that better than me. And so like he takes a little bit longer to film and set up as well. So I just like to kind of get my challenge knocked out, and then I have that time to recover while he's filming and then be able to like interact with people in a more friendly way. Just because I can be a little bit grumpy. I mean, I'm not going to be mean to anyone by any means, but I'm not necessarily the happiest little thing when I get there. I'm pretty hungry, but yeah, that. And I also get nervous. So like if he's going to struggle on something, then that means I'm really going to struggle on something. So usually I just like to go first and have no idea how hard it's going to be and just be pleasantly surprised.
So it's all psychological. I noticed that Randy in more recent videos has become a cheerleader as well and gets the crowd going. You always seem to have a really friendly crowd there. Is it a mix of fascination and a mix of cheering you on, I guess?
Yeah. No, the crowds are really, really great. It's fun. All the people that come out and cheer us on, and there's a lot of times there's like a stunned silence, or like they don't know if they're allowed to cheer. And so that's like a lot of encouraging, like, it's okay. You can talk, you can have a conversation. A lot of like our videos are set to like the music is overlaid over the video so everyone can talk and have a good time. And we want it to sound like a restaurant in there. If it's quiet and like you could hear a pin drop, it's actually more awkward. So like if people are having a good time and cheering or not cheering or booing or disgusted, we want to hear it, because those natural reactions are really fun to play off of as well. And then like, especially if people don't know what's going on and they just kind of happen to be in the restaurant, that's like the best thing ever, because there's like this mixture of like awe and disgust because they have no idea what's going on, or there's just like shock that people are just sitting around watching these people eat a bunch of food with cameras pointed at themselves. It's a different kind of niche community. So when people walk into that, it's pretty funny.
I noticed you had some mainstream, it looked like some mainstream news coverage in your recent Scandinavian trip. You were at a steakhouse, I think you'd been there twice, and I noticed in the background there was a guy there with a large news cameraman type camera on his shoulder.
Yeah, they had showed up to cover the steak challenge, and that happens every now and then, that we'll have news and media show up. So they had me lav mic'd up and everything. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's always neat because especially when the press comes out, that also does really well for the restaurant as well. So maybe somebody hadn't heard that the restaurant really even existed or didn't know it was in their neighborhood. So it could become a new place for dinner for folks.
Okay, now everybody wants to know this, Katina. What happens on the day, the preparation? I assume you would probably not eat a lot the day before. How do you prepare for the day?
So actually, I eat pretty normally the day before. If it's not like a food challenge the day before, sometimes we have to go back to back with challenges. But so usually, normally the day before is pretty normal. If we're on tour, because typically, like if we're on a tour, we're doing maybe 2 or 3 challenges a week. So say on Monday, we do like a 3.5 kilo challenge. We're still pretty trained by Thursday to do another 3.5 kilo challenge. So my eating is relatively normal, just calorie restriction. And then the morning before the challenge is usually just like a small meal for me. Like I said, I get pretty hangry, and that little small meal is kind of a primer to do more exercise leading up to the challenge, just to lead to like more of like a healthier like feeling of hunger. Like, oh, I just worked out, I really need to eat, kind of like more of that sort of feeling, not just like, oh, I'm wasting away, I haven't eaten in forever sort of feeling. So that's usually all the preparation that goes into it, as a small meal. Lots of walking, and if there's like a gym that we have access to, doing some sort of lift or workout, and just trying to stay as active as possible.
So that takes care of the preparation for the day. You go out there, you do the challenge, you eat these enormous amounts of food. What happens afterwards? I mean, do you sleep it off? I think I would have to, I see some of those steak challenges and all that protein you're eating. I would have to sleep for 24 hours, I think, if I ate that much.
It can sometimes be pretty rough to get a good night of sleep. It depends on the food, really. Sometimes you sleep like a baby afterwards. Sometimes it's really rough to fall asleep, depending on the type of food. Sometimes it's better to go for a walk or just relax. Laying down right away afterwards certainly isn't a good idea just because of like reflux and stuff. So usually kind of trying to stay up for a little bit, maybe sit up, do some computer work. I'll usually offload all the footage and maybe like get the thumbnail done or something for the video I've just done because I'm still kind of inspired. I just saw the food. But yeah, that usually happens a few hours after I've eaten. And then after Randy gets done eating, usually there's another maybe anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of greeting people, getting cleaned up, closure with the restaurant, etc. So there's a lot of time between finishing up the eating and then going home. So that kind of movement and the bustle around the restaurant also kind of helps to start the digestion process and hopefully lead to a slightly better night's sleep.
Now, Katina, I have a weakness for food. If I do have one, it's for pizza. Do you have a favorite pizza challenge? I have to ask you this.
Ooh, favorite pizza challenge. Oh, it hasn't posted yet, but I think it's like inched its way into my favorite pizza challenge that I've ever done. It was in Finland and it was at a kebab shop of all places, but it's called Pizza Hour, but it's like a half kebab shop, half pizza shop. And they had a chicken curry pizza that just blew my mind.
Wow.
It was so phenomenal. I had 2 of them, so I'd eat 5 pizzas. This video will post in I think a month or 2, but it was so fantastic. I even tried a seafood pizza, had like tuna and clams on it. I did not expect to really care for it. It was phenomenal. It was one of my favorites just because there was variety. So pretty much, I had 5 pizzas, but 4 different pizzas to kind of mix the palate, and the dough was handmade. It was all really yummy.
And of course, if anyone's a pizza aficionado, there is always something that's considered sacrilege, and that is the touchy subject of putting pineapple on a pizza. What's your position on pineapple on a pizza, Katina from Katina Eats Kilos?
I am all 100% pro pineapple. Pineapple is fantastic on pizza. That sweet kind of sourness on the cheese, just that combo is perfection to me.
Oh, no. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we could eat pizza together in that case. But I like anchovies on pizza, so, nobody would like to eat that.
I don't mind anchovies on pizza either. I'm a pretty not picky either. As long as it's not like covered in tons and tons of raw red onions, I'm usually a pretty happy camper.
Now, of course, you weren't always a professional eater, of course. You spent some time in the United States military, I presume in the Air Force, and you mentioned Biloxi, Mississippi, so I'm assuming that would be Keesler Air Force Base, would it?
Yes, yeah, that was the one. Yep, I did some trading out there for a few months.
Yeah, so what did that give you? What sort of roles did you have in the military? I spent a lot of time with US military people when I lived there, so I know they do a lot of traveling. Did the roles that you performed within the Air Force give you a bit of a taste for travel?
I really wanted to travel a lot. When I joined the Air Force, I was really excited for travel. And then I got a job as a missile technician, which actually only had the opportunity to be at 2 bases for the most part. And that was Barksdale, Louisiana, and Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota. So I ended up going to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, and that was kind of where I was at. And then I had the opportunity to deploy, and I went to the United Arab Emirates and spent 6 months over there. That was actually a really cool experience. And so that was kind of a little bit of a taste for travel. But my first real taste for travel actually came pre-military. In 2014, I did a 3-month trip to New Zealand, and it involved backpacking. I sea kayaked for a month, and then I did a bunch of mountaineering for a month across the southern island of New Zealand. And that was kind of my big first foray into traveling. I was 23 years old at the time, and I just had an absolute blast. So it was a good time.
If it's one thing the Kiwis know how to do well, it's make food, that's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, they had great food in New Zealand as well, but I didn't really get to experience that my first time there. I was just eating trail food. We were off the grid 100% of the time. No showers, nothing. It was all 100% in the outdoors. So.
Well, you've been down this part of the world, of course. You've done an Australian tour just recently as well. You went all over Australia, which I thought was really cool. You've spent some time here in Melbourne, spent time in Sydney. Tell us about some of the more notable food challenges you did while you were here.
Oh, I had a blast. So the one that I remember the most in Melbourne is we did this big vegan challenge, and that was really cool because it was my first fully vegan challenge, and it was kind of geared towards more Indian style food. And it was a buffet kind of style theme for lunches. And then they kind of did normal dishes around dinner time. But they hooked us up with some of the most incredible food ever that I would have never known was vegan, and I'm all pro meat or whatever, but this was so good that in like the most non-biased way. It was fantastic, and it was definitely memorable as a first vegan challenge. But across all of Australia, I would say that we had some really good stuff in Adelaide. I did a really amazing giant deep dish pizza in Adelaide at a place called Remy's. That was phenomenal. And then their other restaurant, actually called Cream, or Coffee Rolls Everything Around Me, did a big like hotcakes challenge that was really, really delicious as well. So, I mean, we went everywhere. I had tons and tons of challenges. Brisbane was one of the most difficult challenges. The final challenge of the trip was the giant Smoky Moo 8-person barbecue platter that I won.
I remember that.
Like with chipmunking, like at the last second, food went in my mouth. It was so intense. And it was like the most turnout of people ever. I think we had over 100 people, if I had to guess, come out to cheer us on. It was so amazing to see. It was like mind-boggling.
And any more plans to come back out again? I think you should come and do another tour. I could think of a couple of good challenges here in Melbourne I could point you to.
There are a ton of challenges left in Australia to do, especially with James Webb still on the scene, kind of kicking off some new ones himself. So there's a lot to do there still, but we also, in fairness, we have a lot of places that we still haven't been yet that we would like to get to. We'd really like to get to South Africa, particularly. There's a lot of fans watching from South Africa. We haven't been yet. And then there's quite a few countries that we just haven't quite made it to, kind of around Europe yet, to do food challenges in. So hopefully Australia, hopefully to do that for fun, because I still haven't been to the Northern Territory. I went to every territory but the Northern Territory. So it was really exciting. Or excuse me, I went to the Northern Territory. I didn't get to the Capital Territory, excuse me.
Oh, to the ACT, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get to Canberra.
Well, that's full of politicians. That's probably put you off your meal, to be really honest with you.
That's we've heard something to that effect, but we won't talk about it.
Now, time's sort of running up against us a bit, Katina, but I wanted to ask you about water. You guys seem to drink a lot of water in these challenges, and my wife and I often muse that, doesn't that fill your stomach up?
It does. So Randy drinks a lot of water and soda with his challenges. I usually try not to, unless I have to for the challenge. So like, for example, that Denmark challenge where I did the steak and the news people are there that you brought up, I had to drink 2 liters of liquid, which was insane for me because I barely usually sip. Maybe like I'll go through maybe a quarter of a liter total if I'm pushing myself during a challenge. So I usually agree with you. I like to save my space for my food. Sometimes you need like diet soda just to change the flavor if it's super salty, or if you need to burp or something, which is kind of gross, but it's part of the game. So yeah, usually I try to only barely sip like maybe some soda or water. Otherwise, I like to save all the room for food and then hopefully dessert after.
Well, Katina, it's been a joy to talk to you, and I wish you continued success, and thanks for all the entertainment you provide to so many of us with your wonderful channel. People can find you at KatinaEatsKilos.com, and I assume on every social media platform that you could imagine.
Thank you very much, Steve.
And sadly, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of The Clear Signal. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's been a really fun episode, I think. We've had Clyde Netto, of course, join us to tell us lots of great information about keeping a computer secure. So I hope we really all take some of that information on board. And who knows, maybe I might even be convinced to buy a Mac. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. Make sure you check out Clyde at Grace Technology Solutions. And thanks, of course, also to Katina for joining us. Make sure you have a look at her channel. It's a lot of fun. She says she brings out her videos in the US, of course, on a Sunday night, which is Monday morning here in Australia, and there's one every week. So, as I say, my wife and I really enjoy watching that channel, and I'm sure you will too. We'll be back next week with some more fantastic interviews, the 17th edition in the Clear Signal series, so we're really moving along here. Until then, have a great week, folks. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Get in touch. Join the conversation. Find us online at clearsignal.com.au.
Southern Skies Media.